Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to IPFW's Mastodon Career Calls. These webinars are provided free to IPFW students and alumni and community members, and we always try to focus on a career development topic to help you work on your skills that employers are looking for and just trying to help you put your best foot forward. These webinars are sponsored by Quincy Recycle, and you can notice that the link to some of the opportunities that they're recruiting for is on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. So go ahead and check out those great opportunities with Quincy Recycle. And I just wanted to mention that our next webinar is going to be how you market your international skills, and that'll be on March 18th, and you can go ahead and register for that webinar on JobZone just like you did for this one. So we'll go ahead and get started, and it is my pleasure to introduce Jack Patton. He's the Director of Marketing here at IPFW, and he's here to talk to you a little bit more about what is your personal brand. So I'll turn it over to Jack.
Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending and joining us today. We will talk about personal brand and what that means, how to cultivate it and stand out. But before we do, a little introduction about myself. I'm IPFW's Director of Marketing. I'm responsible for the university brand, marketing activities, and advertising activities across campus. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and feel free to send an email. My contact information is on the screen. But first, a little bit about myself. I have degrees from the New School University, Northwestern, and IPFW. And this topic is near and dear to me because I started my career as a professional musician before I even entered college, but I have lived this transition in cultivating a new persona or brand for yourself, and so I speak from experience. When I did start as a professional musician, by the time I graduated from with my undergrad, I had signed a record deal, released a couple records, and performed and traveled internationally with very well-known and respected artists. So for me, the transition was one of choice, and I was halfway through graduate school and just literally decided one day that I wanted to focus on marketing. That was my true passion, and yet I had built up some career with music that I realized I had to untangle and get out of, even though I did maintain some and build some marketing skills and experience by working with record companies, doing internships, and also working on the business side as a musician. So I'll take you through some of the steps here that I've been living and gone through, and hopefully provide some food for thought for you. So in the webinar today, we'll talk about brand, what it means. Secondly, why you should care. And lastly, how to cultivate your personal brand. This webinar is not about resume creation and design or internet marketing or any of those things or interview skills, but instead it focuses on building all of those things together so that you know who you are, you can project that and work that to your advantage as you go through your career. So starting with what is brand, going to ask for your feedback here and participation. So we'll go through a couple slides here and invite you to interact throughout the webinar, and at the end we'll have some time for questions. So in this next section, I'd like you to just let me know what things come to mind when you see these logos. The first one here is Apple. So what comes to mind here? Computers. One answer. Right now, Apple is Interbrand's most valuable brand in the world. Some people ask whether you can see the product and know what the product is without seeing the logo. So iPhones come to mind. So those are great examples. This next one is Microsoft. iPad is another for Apple. What comes to mind with Microsoft? Windows. Very common there. Windows is also known for being closed and proprietary with software packages like Office, but on the developer side, they open up their platform, unlike Apple, who keeps a very tight-knit development community for all of their machines. Another here, Coca-Cola. Interbrand's third most valuable brand, estimated to be close to $80 million. Polar bears, soft drinks, yep. And the next one here is Pepsi. So what are some things that come to mind with Pepsi? Maybe their food line, known for Frito-Lay brands, soft drinks. I believe Monster energy drinks are part of Pepsi as well. Pizza Hut, that's right, with the Yum brands, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut. That's right, so Pepsi's a little different than Coke with that whole food angle. Next one here, hitting a little close to home, Peyton Manning. The Colts, yes. Even though he is in a Broncos uniform. All right, the next one here is Tom Brady, quarterback for the New England Patriots. Tom endorses, well, he's married to a supermodel. He endorses Movado, Uggs. And if we think about comparing Tom Brady to Peyton Manning and the products they endorse, you know, Peyton is Chips Ahoy, Dockers, much more of a grassroots, day-to-day kind of person. Last one here, Miley Cyrus. Very flattering picture. Any thoughts about her? She is certainly on a wild streak right now after being a child television star. Nothing good to say. I think we have one more coming in. No comment. All right. Anna Kendrick. Singer. Yep. Versatile actor. Didn't see any publicity or press with her trying to kiss or kissing Katy Perry like we saw yesterday. So just very different. So the reason I'm bringing these up is brand is about perception. It's about what others think of you. It's not anything you can manufacture yourself, although you can project certain aspirations and ideals. But as we saw with Coke versus Pepsi or Apple versus Windows, everybody thinks a little something differently, but with a brand like Apple, we had really consistent responses with iPhones, iPads, and whatnot. A little different between Miley Cyrus and Anna Kendrick. So when we actually look at the formal definition according to Merriam-Webster, it's a particular kind or type of something, with an emphasis on of for a brand. And so it does embody some type of existence, some aspiration, and that means something to all of us as individuals, especially professionals, or as you're entering the workforce. As we refocus brand and think about it from Marty Neumeier's point of view as the author of a well-known book called The Brand Gap, he articulates brand as a person's gut feeling about a product or service because it's emotional. People are emotional, intuitive beings, and brands are defined by individuals, not companies, markets, or the public. So again, it gets back to that gut feeling and that perception about what others think of you, not what you think of yourself, or even necessarily what you say about yourself. So in many ways, your actions, do mean more than words and the things that, again, you articulate about yourself. As we think about the same notion and focus it on ourselves and what a personal brand is and could be, the Wikipedia definition here is a practice of people marketing themselves and their careers as brands, which is very true when you think about the effort that you may put forth when you're trying to get a new job or explore other options, or in my case, transition careers altogether. you do have to make a concerted effort to change things about yourself and communicate and document things and really position yourself a certain way. And so that's really what this is about, as developing and cultivating a personal brand and ultimately communicating it. So the first step in thinking about what personal brand means to you is to ask yourself, what makes me different? That's a really important question to ask yourself, and one that you'll hopefully be asking throughout your entire career. It's always good to ask this on a regular basis, to find your hedgehog concepts from Good to Great, the great book there. But it's a question that can really define what you want to be, what you might be right now, and what you aspire to be down the road. And so with that being said, we're going to throw a couple more pictures up here. I'd like you to weigh in. What comes to mind when you see this guy, Rush Limbaugh? Controversial. He is a radio host. In fact, the most powerful radio host domestically in our airwaves here. Very highly paid, conservative, but he is a talker, and he does a lot of that. But he owns radio in the U.S. as a talk show host personality. I'm going to move on to one here, Katy Perry. Who is she? Her current single right now is number 2 in Billboard's Top 100. She is a pop singer. She is also Twitter's most followed individual in the world with over 51 million followers. And if you think about her platform, she's targeting the pop culture, most of whom are heavy social media users, compared to Rush Limbaugh, who has 258,000 followers. Katy Perry has over 51 million. And Justin Bieber is second to her with, I think it's close to 50 million as well. And then we have this guy, Mark Cuban. Anybody familiar with him? Owner of the Dallas Mavericks. Basketball. Previously attended IU. Started an internet startup company in the late 90s and sold it. Eventually bought the Dallas Mavericks and has been a very vocal owner for the NBA. He also owns HDNet, and he is on Shark Tank. So he is a heavy social media user as well. He has over 2 million followers, but Mark Cuban really touches on many media. He's online, he's on television, he is active on social media, and he has his own platform. And then we have Oprah. Talk show host, publisher with magazine, the O Network, and a role model, and a very, very strong philanthropist. That's absolutely correct. So my point is, as we're going through this, different things come up about these different individuals based on the platforms they've built. And our last one here, the President Barack Obama, and this one is not intended to be a political nature, but if we think about what he did with the 2008 campaign in order to get the presidency, he is a leader for sure, but he used the internet in very innovative ways to help generate support, voter turnout, and raise funds in ways that eventually, on the political side as a politician, got him in office. So he used all media quite well, and really, really tapped into the grassroots efforts unlike any other presidential candidate that we had seen. So the takeaway with looking at all these individuals again is we think differently about each one. They bring different things to the table, and they've used media in different ways based on what their interests are. You know, when you look at the Twitter followers from Rush Limbaugh, who's not heavy on the social media side, his demographics his audiences aren't of that age or necessarily following him in that same way. They listen to him on the radio, on a broadcast medium, or maybe streaming online. But as a performer, Katy Perry was, as I mentioned earlier, just in the news yesterday for kissing Miley Cyrus at a concert, but has over 51 million Twitter followers. So she has built that platform for herself. And think what you will about them, but that's exactly the point. Just think what you will. So the personal brand really starts with you at the center, and focusing on what makes you different and knowing that about yourself, but then also thinking about how you use different media and on a medium by medium basis. So this first print side, it's a very powerful medium, but it's also very traditional. This could include resumes, your cover letter. There are some institutions where you're still required to mail in or hand in a resume or even put one online, but paper is still a very important thing as you consider applying for a job or moving forward in some way, shape, or form. And I'll provide another example of how print can be used when thinking about your personal brand as well. But we also have the digital space, social media. You even just do an internet search for yourself. Social media can include Facebook, Twitter. LinkedIn is very popular as a business development and career development tool. And more employers are looking at prospective employee profiles to find out either how credible or maybe even in some cases how well behaved they may be. So the digital world is a very, very important place to consider throughout all of this. And the last is experiential. That's in person. That's face to face, whether it's in an interview or whether it's out and about meeting and greeting people at a networking event or just building those personal relationships. And all media here, print, digital, and experiential, really point back to you as a person and what you project out and what information people can find about you and ultimately the impression you leave with them. And that's a really important point here is what impression do you want to leave with individuals about you as a person that resonates with them, that creates this gut feeling anytime your name is mentioned or whenever they see a picture of you or see you in person. And that's at its core what personal brand is about, cultivating that feeling. So this first tip here is to stand out, and you can do so by knowing yourself, focusing, and being different. It's how you stand out in a crowd and really make sure that you're able to do the things that you need to do so that people understand you. And by using the print, digital, and experiential mediums to make this more evident through and through so that you, again, can stand out. And not only stand out, but be noticeable, be visible, and when somebody latches onto you and they do notice you, that you have some platform, some topic, some agenda that you can talk about and share with them so they understand more about you and who you are. Previously mentioned Marty Neumeier as being the author for The Brand Gap, and he has a focus test that is totally applicable and appropriate here for developing your personal brand. It's comprised of 3 questions, as you can see. Who are you? What do you do? And why does it matter? So an individual who can successfully communicate their personal brand in that way can ultimately develop more of that brand perception in a positive manner so that you are able to express things about yourself, about what you do, how you do them, what you aspire to be, and ultimately the value you bring and that you add. Seth Godin is an author and technologist, and this quote, "If you can't state your position in 8 words, you don't have a position," is meaningful here because it is about an elevator pitch. It is about making sure that you can quickly articulate who you are, what you want to be, and how you're different, again, through those 3 previous questions. So this really reiterates the point about knowing yourself, focusing, and differentiating yourself. So moving on to why you should care about your personal brand and cultivating it. This is a quote from the most popular and most watched TED Talk from Simon Sinek. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply serves as the proof of what you believe. This comes from his talk, Why and How Leaders Inspire. Highly recommend it. And the point here, again, is that you're building off of something that is based on purpose. You know what you aspire to be. You can do it. You bring those values and skill sets to the table. And ultimately, you want to find those who value and are looking for the same skill sets and traits. So second tip here is to develop personal mantras. A mission statement, a vision statement, and values. The mission is, what business are you in? In my case, as a marketing professional, my mission statement is to provide access to information. And in saying that, I know how to calibrate around that idea and to thematically build that out in different ways based on the audience or the recipient of that message. In terms of vision, it's what do you aspire to be? Again, as a marketing professional, I aspire to create and stimulate measurable demand. And values are, what are the things that you value and live by? What are your maxims, if you will? Professionally speaking, again, on the marketing side for me, it's about measurement, analytics, continuous improvement, sustained success, not just providing access to information, but building towards an intended outcome with more certainty. So Guy Kawasaki is a great one to talk about mission statements, because his whole thing is, don't give me a long, formal mission statement that I can't repeat or that I don't quite understand. Make it short. Make it a very quick mantra so that when you make statements, they're short, easy to remember, and extendable, meaning that you can place them in different media easily. You can intertwine those sentiments and your mission, vision, and values throughout your resume or your LinkedIn page by showing your proof of work and proof of concept, or even experientially if you're interviewing with someone or networking, that you can reiterate that point and really make sure that they have a lasting positive memory and association with you. So that's the second tip here, develop personal mantras. And this is an example for how I used these three media to get the job here at IPFW. I was very thoughtful in my interview process, and in my candidacy here. I was not looking for a position, and someone notified me. It was a direct message through LinkedIn, and at the time it really piqued my interest and made me very excited. And again, even though I wasn't looking, I became really excited about the possibilities and started to think about this. So I made a deliberate attempt to really think how the print, digital, and experiential mediums would craft my visibility and my experience here in going through the interview process. So the first thing is with my resume and cover letter. The actual ones are actually on screen here. I made sure that first with my resume that it was short. I just wanted it to be really short and succinct, and I integrated LinkedIn throughout so that you could go to the page, go to my personal page, and find out more information about what I'd done and get more portfolio there. And likewise, in my cover letter, I referenced that and encouraged, again, respondents to look at that so that I could really calibrate around these mission, vision, values that I had. And I just reiterated that point time and time again, and then was able to follow up and prove at that time why I would be a good candidate. And then in order to stand out from the crowd, this is a project that I did. I created a bound book, and the title was 7 Reasons I Want to Be IPFW's Next Marketing Director. And I sent it to the individual who was hiring for the position. And in this book, I was very aspirational, very practical. I laid out all the reasons that I felt I would be a good candidate. I was honest, I was sincere, I was authentic, I backed up my work through case studies and real work, and talked about things like my love for marketing communications and how digital and technology and research play into an analytics opportunity for us in today's marketplace, so that when I went into the interview process with a telephone interview and things like that, first I was able to stand out from the crowd. Secondly, I was able to reiterate things that were being said in the resume cover letter and online, and really just tried to make a sincere pitch to the individuals who were responsible for hiring the position. And what I did find out is that made a big difference. What I was able to do with the individual hiring and the search committee was focus on my interest and skill sets and how they could apply and add value to IPFW here. I reiterated those points throughout the process. It was a formal interview process, so telephone interview, being on campus for a day and those types of things. And then it really helped guide conversations as well. Tried to tee it up in a way that allowed individuals to ask meaningful questions of me, and likewise I was able to research and ask meaningful questions of the search committee, and ultimately that helped to set expectations. So in my case, in this position here, it was important to stand out, but I really wanted to feel like I gave everything I could to show my candidacy, and if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. Luckily and thankfully it did work out, but the other side of that, being in this position now, I knew what I was getting into, and that happened as a result of my preparedness, not just for the interview process, but by thinking about how I could create and stimulate demand for my skill sets through print, online, and throughout the interview process. So there's a real life example of how I was able to work all three things together. And this next section here, how to cultivate your brand, is focused on how to bring all of those things together. First one is to lay it out. And this is adapted from Marty Neumeier's book, but the point is to differentiate yourself. Use that focus test. Just lay it out. Be yourself. Be mindful that other people are looking at you, looking at the content you may have online or through your resume or cover letter, but make sure you find a way to focus on yourself such that you are able to stand out. And the second is to network online and in person. Use the personal experiences and the experiential side of this process to know how to make connections and to ultimately find those who value what you bring to the table. And to innovate. Show how you're different. It's one thing to say, you can focus on yourself and know who you are, but it's another to be able to actually bring that forward, whether it's through schoolwork that you did as an undergrad or as a graduate student or in side projects or as an internship or through your externship. But it's really important to show how you're different so that people understand it. And Apple, in this case, does a great job. When you interact with their product, they've cultivated their brand such that everybody thinks immediately of not just computers, but iPhones and iPads because of the entire experience that they've created through innovation. And validate, prove your worth, prove your work. Show what you can do. Don't just talk about it, but build a portfolio and communicate that portfolio through a resume or a cover letter or through your LinkedIn profile or online in some other way. If you blog, make sure you put it online there and can, again, just continue to reiterate and focus the value that you bring to the table. And lastly, cultivate. Rinse and repeat this process. The more you differentiate yourself, network, innovate, and validate the work you do, the more you'll be recognized. This is a cycle, and it's one that's focused on continuous improvement and sustained success. One-offs are okay, but right now in the world we live in, the connection economy is built on cultivating your personal brand and going through this process in a regular basis and doing it in a very concerted manner. It does take time, but it pays off in the end. So the last tip here is to communicate across all media. Think about print, digital, and experiential, and how all those things tie together to create a perception of you and the brand you aspire to create and the person that you are, the brand that you are today. Communicating in this way is a very, very important tool across all media and allows you to really set the expectations for the individual. You know, people are going to think what they think about you, and that perception, as we saw from Marty Neumeier's quote, is it's a brand. The brand is it's a gut feeling that people create. It can't be manufactured. It's totally true here. At the same time, you can start to communicate things about yourself and create value that others see so that they become more aware and are informed about you. And then you can start a different type of dialogue. So in the end, cultivating your personal brand comes down to being able to stand out, develop a personal mantra, your personal mission, vision, value statements, and ultimately to be able to communicate all of those across the media that I've identified here: print, digital, and experiential. And ultimately, when you become an Oprah Winfrey or a Rush Limbaugh or a Mark Cuban, you can use broadcast media to your advantage, whether it's radio, TV, or online and otherwise. But start small. Start with your resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, or even your Facebook profile, and make sure that you're building and cultivating those relationships so that people really know what they're getting when they interact with you, and then build your conversation from there. So here's some reference information. Marty Neumeier's book, as I mentioned earlier, The Brand Gap, is a great read, and there are some ways that you can, it's a fast read as well, that you can tailor that to you and personalities. There's a great tool here that he's developed called the Talent Finder, and it allows you to go in and understand and explore what your true strengths might be. So I recommend it there at the web address. Tom Peters is really one of the first pioneers and innovators of the personal brand, and there's a famous article published by Fast Company called "The Brand Called You." So if you type in Tom Peters, if you search online for Tom Peters and personal brand, you'll likely find this article. Again, I highly recommend it. I referenced Seth Godin earlier. He has a great definition of brand, but I also recommend following his blog. He writes about the connection economy and things that we face right now. And then Simon Sinek's TED Talk, How Great Leaders Inspire Action, is another great 20 minutes. So I recommend giving that a view. So at this point, we're able to open up questions here. Appreciate the opportunity to talk about personal brand, but we'll open up the webinar for anybody to ask questions. So please feel free to fire away. Like we have one coming from Claire and Karen. Would a career assessment help with developing my brand? Sure, absolutely. If you can better understand your strengths and weaknesses, so that you can either use that for personal or professional development yourself, or ultimately knowing where you want to go, career assessments are great tools. So yes, and Career Services offers them. So stop into the office here and speak with one of the counselors, and they can certainly help. It really helps you focus, know what might interest you if you're still looking for that, and knowing your strength. That's another tough one. If you go through the focus test and you ask yourself those 3 questions, who am I, what makes me different, and really start to think about how you can bring focus to who you are, you'll start to get through better understanding what your strengths are. And if you even start to ask yourself those questions, and you start to methodically play those out through school, work, or otherwise, you can start to prove whether or not those are your strengths. So intuition can be a really good thing there for you. So yeah, career assessment's great. Knowing your strength certainly helps, and career assessment not only can help you do that, but the Marty Newmeyer web address that I put up earlier is a good way to do it, and just starting to ask yourself that question is also good. So Karen asks, how do you use LinkedIn to most effectively network? First, getting a profile that shows your skill sets is most important. And what I mean by that is it's one thing to put your job title up there. It's another to talk about the functions that job provides. And then you can also build on that by providing results or outcomes of the work you've done. Some choose to provide a portfolio like that through a blog, or maybe not through LinkedIn, or ask that you contact them for more specific information. Others go ahead and put outcomes directly on their profile page. LinkedIn also has a really nice feature where you can create a summary for yourself. So that's a nice way to intertwine your personal mission, vision, value statement without necessarily saying it. And then as you read through your actual experience, to reiterate those same points. And lastly, LinkedIn provides a lot of groups. So if you're interested in learning more about Excel, you can join the Excel Black Belt group. Or if you're interested in inbound marketing, there are a plethora of inbound marketing groups you can join, and on and on. So LinkedIn groups are also a really nice way to connect with others and show that you're following industry trends and trades as well. So to recap LinkedIn, update your profile so you have your summary up there. Intertwine your personal mission, vision, values, so that as you work through your resume and your experience, you can reiterate those points. And instead of just putting up your job title and the time of employment you've had, build out your functions that the job provided and the outcomes, the results of your work there. And then lastly, join LinkedIn groups. So Bernadette asked, does career services help with brand when doing a resume critique? I suspect yes, in so as the extent of pairing skills with professions. And if you can reiterate skills that you bring to the table and show the experience you have in that profession, as well as your interests above and beyond the job, the day-to-day job, the things that you bring to the table, all of that should come through your resume. When you ultimately look at the resume, that's not just a document that shows what you've done, but it's also a way to show the outcomes and where you're headed. And it's a vehicle by which you communicate where you aspire to go, which is the reason you have a resume and would be applying for a position. So the more you can tailor your resume and work with career services to do that, the better fit you become with a profession or a job that you're applying for, and ultimately help the individual reviewing all the resumes to know why you would be a good fit, so that they're more inclined to call you for an interview or to learn more about you. And likewise, integrating more digital media like LinkedIn or a blog or something like that to find additional information would be perfectly appropriate. But yes, career services does provide those services, and I highly recommend spending time with any of the counselors here. So, you're welcome, Bernadette. Are there any other questions at this point? See one's coming in from Sherry here. All right. Yes, the PowerPoint will be available. It will be on the Career Services website, and I believe on YouTube as well. So please feel free to look at the deck and the slides to get additional information. And likewise, you have my contact information here. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or send me an email, and I'd be happy to help in any way, whether it's giving you a copy of this or providing additional resources. So please don't hesitate to reach out. So All right. Well, without further ado, I think